And we are going to kick off our first evening with an entrepreneur. Mike?
Well, thank you, Angie. So the inspiration for this is to connect with our student entrepreneurs in the Believe in Ohio program to give them a real example of success in entrepreneurship and in business development. I had the pleasure of meeting tonight's entrepreneur and our guest, Caroline Karbowski, in 2018 at the Buckeye Science and Engineering Fair, where she competed and was named a finalist to go on to represent the fair in the Ohio Academy of Science at the International Science and Engineering Fair. Caroline is the founder and CEO of C3D Inc. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, which has organized the printing and distribution of over 2,100 3D printed models for blind and low vision people in 33 states and 18 countries. She has given TEDx talk, published in the Journal of Science Education for students with disabilities. She's been featured in numerous podcasts, radio shows, and conferences, and is in training to be a literary Braille transcriber. She also is the Chief Community Officer of A Cubed Design, which is a startup that is making more affordable and customizable Braille display. She won $5,000 from the Ohio State University's inaugural President Buckeye Accelerator. She's a recent graduate of 2022 with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, minors in Chemistry, and American Sign Language. She currently works full-time as a research assistant in the biochemistry lab at Ohio State and competes in ballroom dance with OSU dance sports team. Now, that's a lot, but I know there's more. I got an invitation from Caroline once to come and hear her sing the national anthem at a women's basketball game in Value City Arena. So I know there's more in the package that we could have included. Caroline, it's a pleasure to always see you and have you on the call tonight. I would like if you could just give us the Caroline Karbowski story in terms of how you got started with C3D, where the inspiration came from, your ideas, development, and how you turn this thing into a successful business.
That is great. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm excited to meet with all of you, and especially talking with students, because I started C3D when I was in high school, and my ideas for it came when I was in middle school. So it always excites me to kind of chat with other people who also could start new things that could really grow into big organizations by the time that you were in college. So thank you for the great intro. I'm Caroline. Right now I'm in Columbus, Ohio, where I work at OSU. And I'm just going to start you back with how I started C3D, 3D printing for the blind. So way back in 6th grade, I decided to learn Braille so I could read books in the car without getting dizzy. So I started learning with the alphabet, then started learning contractions, and I was trying to find some more uses to use my Braille because I'm fully sighted. So people were really wondering, like, why are you learning Braille? Like, how useful is that? So I thought, well, I'll try and find some options. So I started Googling about Braille on the internet. And around this same time, I did a science fair project in 8th grade about plants. And I made it to the Broadcom Masters next level. And I had to submit an application. And one of the things they were asking us to talk about was, what's an application for 3D printing? And I Googled about 3D printing for blind people. And I found this article here that had these science images where they were 3D printing articles for blind people, 3D printing science models for blind people, and then adding 3D printed Braille labels. And I thought, oh, I can apply my concept for this. And while I didn't make it farther in Broadcom Masters, I just, I didn't make it past that. I did keep that same idea from that essay I had to write. And when I got to high school, I saw people were wanting to do things with 3D printers, but didn't know what to make. And I thought, oh, we could make models for blind people. And I really brought back that idea that I started in 8th grade. And I started to visit schools that had blind students there and brought 3D models, asking them, the students, what type of models they would want that my high school friends could make. I got some suggestions and we got model ideas for things that could be designed as well. And this is my high school team on the left with our board. We started going to events showcasing our idea, trying to get other people to come join us to also 3D print models. And we went to conferences and we'd present. And it really just grew by word of mouth. I met some other people who are blind who joined the team, and they helped us find more people to 3D print models. So it was really all about finding volunteers who wanted to 3D print models for fun. So that just kind of was just, I didn't even like do formal advertising. I just started going to events and meeting people. And today, so that I really started to see 3D in 2017. That's when I was in high school. Today, we have a lot of students at Ohio State who intern for us, as well as high school students. And we do a lot in the Columbus area, getting more students and volunteers to join and design models. And this is our team on the right at a fundraiser we do at a restaurant each year. And we've really expanded our efforts beyond just like 3D printing. So like when we go in the community and do events, we ask the restaurants to make Braille menus. So that way blind people could go there and pick what they would want to eat. So here's just some general blindness statistics that like really shows like in the world, there's about 36 million blind people, and the number is going to increase. A lot of it is like due to like glaucoma and diabetes, like blindness is really increasing. And one thing we really like to promote at C3D is the option for people to learn Braille and incorporating Braille into our models, because in the United States, less than 10% of blind students are learning Braille, and only 31% of blind adults are employed. But of the blind adults who are employed, 90% of them read Braille. So we really try to incorporate Braille into our models, into descriptions of models, because it's really a key for employment in the future. Here's some models that people have designed, some of our volunteers. Like we have a iPhone that has Braille tactile buttons on it, so you know what the phone layout is. On the bottom left, it's an apartment. We have a house, an adjustable bar graph model on the bottom right, and on the top right, it's the life cycle of a butterfly, which is requested by a kindergarten teacher. Here's some photos of some of our model recipients. So on the left, there's Rachel in the burgundy shirt, and she's blind and she teaches other blind people how to use technology. And she wanted a model of the eye because for one of her certification tests, she had to learn about the eye and know where all the muscles were. So we printed her the model, and with the assistance of that, she was able to pass her test. On the right, there's a woman named Cassandra, and she's touching a Disney castle model. And she's the first person to receive a model from us. And I asked her, I said, what was a castle before you touched the model? And she said, castle was just a word. And now she's like, when I touch castle, I know like there's a bridge, there's spires, there's like cones on the top. And I've even some other people I've talked to recently as well, they also say for some concepts, a lot of times it's really just a word. Like, what is a brain? Like, I don't know what a brain looks like. It's just brain. They might know what something does, but really being able to describe it, sometimes people don't know. And so with 3D printing, you can really provide that knowledge. And one of our latest projects we're doing is we're making models that correlate to African children's stories that are donated to students in Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So there's about 10 schools for the blind that we've recently sent models to. This was our first project. We did a book called A Very Tall Man. It's a Ugandan children's story about a man who was really tall in real life and how he adjusted things to fit his needs. So And the top, there's a photo of a man, he's so tall that his legs are going off the bed. But then he made a bed that was longer so that way he could fit in it. So we made 3D prints that correlate with the illustrations so that way the students could experience that. And so we made a short bed model and a tall bed model. And these models were first taken to a school in Nairobi. And what's exciting is the books are made by another nonprofit in Cincinnati called the Clovernook Center for the Blind. And they made the books in print braille, and they're in all different languages. Some are in Swahili, some French, some English. And that way the students have access to stories that are from their culture and in languages that they know. So this is, I think, a really cool project, and we've just done a bunch more books. We also make learning guides. So we make an anatomy kit and a United States kit, and we have kits that describe what the models do. Also on the right, I just want to draw attention to this. See how we have like a raised line image? It's called a tactile graphic. And that is what people used before they had 3D printing. And people still use those now. It's just now we have access to 3D printed models, and people have used 3D models in the past, but a lot of times they've been really expensive. So later tonight, I might talk about tactile graphics. So just want to make sure you know what that is. We also run the 3D printing club at the Ohio State School for the Blind, where this is our 4th year. So the students 3D print models that the students and teachers request, and we're also working with companies to make printers accessible so that way blind people can use them themselves. And that's like the only thing we really value at C3D is since we have blind people that we're sending models to, we have blind people that work for us and volunteer for us, we have to make everything accessible. So like everything we use to communicate, we make sure it works with screen readers. We also have interns that work with us. So mainly they're high school and college students, do all things from marketing, data analytics, web design, and accounting. And we're always looking for more people to join our team. So if you're interested, I can send you some info. And here's our team from our first cohort. And we have people that also volunteer for us. So these are people who design models, print models, put braille labels on boxes, and sand models. So here's students on the right sanding models at Ohio State. And this is my main contact info here. And if the QR code goes to our website. So, and I can always put some of this contact info in the chat or so too, but I just want to make sure you can see it, and feel free to reach out or message me also on LinkedIn, and I can chat with you there as well.
Excellent, thank you. So I do have a couple of questions, and I'm sure everybody in the call today may have, or maybe developing a few of their own. So when students in the Believe in Ohio program come through, they do have a template, and it's built loosely on the Lean Business Model canvas. Mm-hmm. So we're going to walk through some of those aspects with Caroline, and I'd like her to kind of, if she doesn't, to address the pain point of the marketplace. So obviously you were close to, the sensitivities of blind people and those that are sight impaired at an early age. It was, you became interested in the subject matter, but what did you learn about the marketplace, and what was the problem that was confronting people that gave you kind of the impetus to turn this passion into a business? I realize you're a 501c3, but it's still about creating revenue models and sustaining the operations of the organization. So if you could start with kind of, the marketplace overview, identifying that pain point, I'd, like to know more about that.
Yes. So from talking with a lot of my friends who are blind, some things that have come up are, one, maybe people have access to models, but they're really expensive and there's only maybe one at the school. So when you go home to do your homework or when you graduate, you don't have access to that model. Or maybe there's one model and everyone in the class is having to share it. So you have 10 people touching the model at once and it can get kind of cumbersome. And also, like, some models are maybe only like you maybe only have 10 models in your classroom, but you have 10,000 concepts that you're learning. You have 10,000 maybe pictures in your textbook. There's just not enough models to be equal to what's the number of pictures that you have. So what people wanted were inexpensive and fast ways to get models, maybe even ones that are smaller. Like when you go home to do your homework, maybe you don't need a huge map of the United States. Maybe you use the huge one at school, but you want a smaller version just to quickly reference for your homework. And that doesn't really exist right now. People wanted things that were, again, like cheaper. To some, like United States maps can be about $400. And people also want, let me think here, I guess like, so we have like the tactile graphic people have, but people want things that really have a 3D shape around as well. It really gives you more context. And some people have very specific interests, and there maybe isn't an official mass-produced model already out there. Like maybe you just want to know, what does my neighborhood look like? And like, what does the outline of my streets and things all look like? And you're not going to be able to buy that from a company because, you know, like, why would they print just your street? But there are now ways online that you can like put your address in, and it automatically makes a map of your neighborhood. And so people really need that customizable, fast thing that really is specific to their needs. Also, teachers of visually impaired students often have to hand make materials themselves. Maybe they're sometimes, you know, hand making these models, and that can be take a really long time to make something that's specific. But with 3D printing, there's already thousands of models already out there that they can find that meet those specific needs.
So, you know, typically when you think of customization and you think of speed, you know, those are two things that
Right.
add a premium price to the product. Typically, right?
Yeah.
So how were you able to deliver that in that affordable, you know, in that affordable way?
So one of it is most of the models we access are already free online anyway. Now, sometimes we have to pay for them, but with our status, sometimes we can email someone and say, hey, we're actually making this for someone who's blind for school. Would you give us a discount or give it to us for free? We've had that. We've also done things where we make deals with businesses, say, hey, will you do this for free if we promote you on social media? And we can save money there. And a lot of it is more just the advocacy at work. So a lot of times people are willing to work with us and maybe donate to us things because they believe in our mission and our cause. So even what I found, like with some of my things with the Buckeye Accelerator, is if people really like the values of the business, they'll be willing to pay money for it or give you a discount on something if they like your social cause that you're doing. So we really emphasize that. And we also offer things like we get grants to then fund projects that we can give to people who are not able to afford products. And then for people that can't afford products, they have the option to donate.
Okay. So, I mean, your market, when you think about it, the one thing is that, you know, the 36 million you described, they all share one thing in common, that they're blind, sight impaired.
Right.
Yet they all have they may have different needs in terms of what products they want. So how do you work in terms of either segmenting the market or keeping yourself from, you know, just chasing, you know, need and demand in a, you know, in kind of a random way, you know, so that you can work in segments? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm thinking of two things. So one segment is amount of blindness. So some people, like, well, most people who are blind, they don't see all black. Like that, that's not really what blindness is. It's more like some things might be blurry, or there might be black splotches, or depending on the light settings, you might see different things. Or some people maybe also are like fully colorblind, or maybe can only see one color. So for some people with low vision, a lot of times they might use large print. And so one thing we offer is with our learning guides, we have large print guides. We have Braille guides. We also have an electronic version. So that way people can modify it on their computer or print it out in any like a custom format they need. So like that's one thing we do is we offer different options. And then for some low vision people that want to, that are also maybe looking at the model as well as touching it, sometimes they have preferences for colors they might use or high contrast. So if people talk with us about their needs, sometimes we're able to maybe print the model in 2 different colors to have high contrast settings on it. And then for maybe ages or like type of person requests the model, we often have maybe seniors, or so a lot of times seniors who request models are people who didn't get to learn the concept when they were in school. They didn't have access to a DNA model 50 years ago. And so now they're asking about that. We also often have students in school that want models. And so for the students, one thing we really offer is our learning guides. So these are the kits that teachers can incorporate into their lessons that are around a specific topic. And those are mainly marketed to students. For more like seniors or more in general, just adults, they often do more custom things, and often it's things related to their house or their town, like that map of the I did a map of someone's apartment. So a lot of people want to know things for like navigation. We worked with a guide dog school and made a map of their campus, which was really cool. So honestly, in the past, it was more just like a free for all. People just can post whatever, like ask us, can you make blank? But what we found now is some people want to have options of things to pick from. And so that's why we have a gallery of all of our different previous models. And right now we're working on even a new system that is a list of all of our previous model requests that people could pick from, because that type of idea has been suggested from teachers and adults.
Okay. So is it the education space that kind of where your customers are located? I mean, if you had to segment like the largest space, I mean, is it in education?
I would say education, and in education, it's informal education. So things like a camp,
Okay.
like a science, like a fun camp, or a conference, bonus activity, less as much like for my specific class in school. Most of our models, about like 75% of our models are actually requested from an organization. It's a big group order. And then like 25% are more just individuals just requesting a model.
Okay. Well, that helps us understand a lot. So what exactly did you know about 3D printing? You know, you have a lot of different things that make up your business. You know, and you talked about having collaborative partners. So I guess, you know, the first thing is, you know, what did you know and what have you learned? Or is this something that is a part of the process or a part of the contribution of these collaborative partners?
Right. So when I came into 3D printing, I really just only knew what I was Googling. Like I didn't actually have a printer. Like when I was in high school, I asked the tech teacher there to show me how to download files from the internet and print them. So I didn't know anything going into it, but throughout like about maybe half a year of school, like sometimes just after class, he would show me how to, you know, load filament in the printer, troubleshoot it when it wasn't printing right. And today, like with 3D printing, I know about some different like types of filament you can use. I know about printers that are more or not really very accessible. Like I look a lot into the accessibility of slicing settings and printers that can talk. I know some basic design work but for the most part though, like I don't really do hardcore designing or hardcore like 3D print settings. I more find other people who have those skills and invite them to the team. And so I focus more on the marketing and adding braille labels to model, finding new customers, talking with our customers. And so like that was a key decision too, because I realized like if I was the expert in all aspects of C3D, then it wouldn't be very effective because I'd be doing all of the jobs. And it's more effective to find other people who have skill sets and bring them to your team and work together than one person doing everything. So
I'm going to,
That kind of goes into like collaborating too.
absolutely. So I'm going to end with something, and then I'll open it up to the audience. So the thing I do want to ask is if you could talk about skill sets, okay? Skills, mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset, what it takes to be successful. Now, I mean, listening to you, I get a lot of this is good old fashioned elbow grease, right?
Yep.
Roll up the sleeves and you got to dive in. It's hard work. You have to be willing to be consumed, but that's what my takeaway is. But I'd like to hear from you and how it's altered, how you go about, not just your business in C3D, but how it has affected you in terms of the research in your group, or how you approach education in general. Just things that people can take away to be successful.
Right. I think one really good skill is networking. Like one thing I'm really glad I did in high school was Tech Olympics. And that's a tech and like network conference that happens in Cincinnati, Ohio. So if you're in that area, probably could go. It's for high school students. And that really helped with networking, thinking about interview skills, elevator pitches. I think elevator pitches is a really useful skill. And that's why I talk with my friends at college as well. And they agree on that too. And also expanding what you think networking is. Sometimes networking is going to a career fair, seeing maybe like, oftentimes it's people that are farther along in a career path than you as a student. But networking can really be just like talking with your friends in the club or random person that you see at the dining hall. Like for me, the person who runs the C3D website and has been working with me for 4 years, I met him at the dining hall and just told him about my idea. He thought it was cool and has just been helping me since. And we then started a cube design together and now working on our second company. And I didn't, like it was just kind of a cool thing that happened. Or some of my friends are people from clubs, and also just like, so sometimes like you maybe meet someone, maybe you have a really cool interest and don't feel like don't inhibit yourself from sharing those cool interests, because that might be the thing that really connects you with someone else. Lately, I found someone else I heard that also knew Braille at Ohio State, and you don't hear that too often. So now I'm really excited to talk with this person. And I was on the jump rope team for Ohio State, and I was once in a job interview, and they said, "Oh, my roommate was also on the jump rope team." So, you might be like small things like that, and staying connected with people in like LinkedIn or in general, just having their email. So if you meet someone in the future, you can always connect people together, and always having a open out, like whenever you meet people, they could be a future contact. So always be on the lookout for that. And think of other skill sets. One thing they told us in our OSU entrepreneurship group is they said, fail early. So whenever you're testing business ideas, it's better to like build some prototypes, check it out. And if you probably already know the pitfalls of your business right now. Like, so they said, think of yourself, like, what are the problems you have with your business now? Where do you think it's going to fail 5 years from now? And just address the problem now. Don't wait 5 years for the problem to show up. If you already think it's going to come, start addressing it now, and being okay with acknowledging that these failures could happen. It's better to address it now than, wait 5 years, and test things now and fail on them, so that way you can fix it and not waste time with something that was going to break in the future.
Great points. Excellent. Well, with that, we do have folks on the call tonight, and I would be happy to open it up if anybody had questions. If not, I certainly have a few more in mind of my own, but I would rather hear from the audience and maybe think of or we'll try a different direction of thought. Please don't be shy.
Caroline, I know you started this idea in high school. So what advice would you give to high school students who have ideas that they want to share today?
So I would say find mentors and people at your high school that you can share your idea with and see if you can do that at your school. Like, so for me, when I was in high school, I wanted to do 3D printing. So I went to the tech club. And I wasn't actually involved with the tech club really that much before I did see 3D. And so I said, hey, I have this idea. And people said, oh, yeah, sure. Why don't you try it? And I also didn't just stop with like the tech teacher at my high school. I went to some other teachers that maybe had similar interests. Like I talked with the math teacher and on my idea. And she said, oh, there's actually some calculus models that people have been using. You should check those out. And when I Googled it, lo and behold, there were a whole bunch of calculus models out there. So I was really like, thinking, what are all these different topics that I was interested in? Like, and thinking like if in your classroom, like I know like in my biology class, we had DNA models, but a lot of those like DNA models could be really expensive. And I thought, oh, we can 3D print that DNA model. So I think it's really finding mentors. And if you can't find people, like if you don't find a mentor at your school, don't feel afraid to look outside your school for mentors as well. And maybe finding even students at other high schools. Like I connected with students at Loveland High School and students at Summit, like all different areas. And I always like promoting going to Tech Olympics because I think that really jump-started my career.
Karen, if you had a follow-up to that, you can ask. If anybody else has a question, I would encourage you to ask your question now.
Oh, hey, I didn't know, like, are there any students on the call? Like Jackson, I didn't know if you're a student. Or Anne.
I'm a teacher.
Oh, awesome.
I used to teach 8th grade science and STEM, and then I got my master's in special education. But I still have I still get the emails for STEM, and I'm pretty close with the STEM teacher now. So I was really interested in this because I am actually working with a visually impaired student this year.
Awesome.
I had him in 8th grade and he was fine. And his vision just started to go really quickly. Oh, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to those connections that you never know that you might have
Right.
out there. So that's really great.
So let's take a moment. We can actually also fill in for this. The Believe in Ohio program, Caroline's talking about networking. She's talking about mentors, right? Big important things to have and big resources for the students in helping them develop their project. So as you may or may not know, students in the Believe in Ohio program can pursue STEM commercialization or STEM business plans. The STEM commercialization plan, typically, it centers around the scientific or the STEM proof of concept. In the business side, it centers around more of the financial proof of concept of a particular product, service, or problem-based solution. So, in developing, their template, new for this year, all of the projects are being registered in a new social learning platform called STEM Wizard. So all of the resources reside.
Project board.
I'm sorry, project board. Wow, that was a real fail. So it's project board. And so the resources reside there. We have the ability to connect students to those resources and where the templates are. But most important is they're developing their work in project board. It's a digital maker space, so that they can complete those templates in that sequential order. And they can also gather feedback from someone who's assigned to their classroom And so that could be a content expert, could be an educator, it could be, you know, somebody from their community, or it might even be one of our STEM advocates. But there are those resources to gather feedback and to create those networks. So I think that's really important to know, doing this, you're not alone, and that you are connected to other opportunities, other learning opportunities from other people. So I think that really works very well. You talk about, you know, if you're going to fail early, fail often. Well, this is a way to gather that feedback early in the process. So we can help develop plans that are really strong and make sense.
And I'm also like, when you just made me think of another thing too, is reconsidering how you define success. Is it all there? So if you consider how you define, so often we think of success as making money, which is good. And one thing we learned in our Ohio State program is, what if maybe you make money, but what if you also can have less environmental impact, or you can change a statistic, like for us, like maybe, you know, employing more blind people or something. And maybe you can do the same thing as like another group, but you have a social enterprise aspect of your business. So social enterprise is a really like a popular thing right now in the business community. So a lot of times it's having maybe a for-profit model, but you do something that helps the community as well. So like there's something, sometimes people have, like a lot of social enterprises, usually like the proceeds from their business maybe support people who don't have money to afford their products, or they employ people who maybe formerly were in jail or formerly were abused, or maybe like for our case, we could, you know, like we employ blind people who often don't have face a lot of discrimination and things in the workforce. And so maybe those are some, like maybe you have an idea and you go online and you find out that someone else is already doing your idea, and you might feel defeated, like, oh, well, why should I do this? Well, maybe you can put a spin on that idea, make it more of a social enterprise. You can do even more good than what that other company is doing. And I would not feel discouraged if you see someone else doing your idea. I would maybe modify it so that way you can be unique.
Perfect. Excellent advice. Hey, we're going to conclude. I'm glad we were able to do this inside of, 45 minutes or so, because we do intend to share this with, our educators, and we'll be able to put this in Project Board as well, so that it could be viewed during a classroom period as well. Caroline, thank you very much. It was excellent, very informative, and I hope our young entrepreneurs and our future innovators are able to glean a lot of what you've provided them. So thank you very much. Angie, if you had anything else, if not, then we'll conclude the call.